Michele Mazelleغ. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to share with you all this video clip and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So let's get into it.
But I want to know how it is you voted for Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States.
Why are you so worried about the white dispossession of America?
Because I want my people to survive. Is that so strange? We don't control China. We don't control any place where whites are not a majority. And if we become a minority, we will not control our own destiny anymore.
You keep saying your ancestors built this country. You consider that a fact?
Who else built it?
Black people, Native Americans, Chinese people who came and built the railroads.
Do you think none of that could have been
Italian
achieved?
people.
But they're Europeans, aren't they?
Everything that this man said is wrong, is ludicrous, is crazy that people are still talking like that in this day and age. And it's also crazy because he wants to create this utopian society for people that look like him when they are the ones that did not create the utopian society that he wants. If the Europeans wanted to have a utopian society, then they should have stayed in Europe. They traveled to North America that was already inhabited by Native Americans. Then they forcefully brought people from the continent of Africa because they needed them to work in plantations and on the cotton fields. And then they allowed immigrants to come over because, again, they needed help with building. They needed help with innovations and creative things that they were not able to come up with on their own. And then they upset because the United States of America is literally a melting pot full of people and full of cultures with something that his ancestors created. They should have left well enough alone, and they didn't. And so now you have the United States of America, and there's not really anything he can do to change that. I do, though, want to really concentrate and hone in on that last little bit that he said to the Asian guy. The Asian guy said that he was talking about all these different immigrants and you know, why this white guy wants them all to be gone and eradicated. And then he said, the Asian guy said, Italian immigrants. And then the guy said, well, they're Europeans, aren't they? That comment alone speaks volume. This isn't the only interview that this man has done. He did an interview with another guy where he says that he wants to use a European method in order to eradicate these other groups out of the United States of America so that they can continue to be a utopian society with basically people that look like him that are European descent, that have European ancestries. That's only how he feels like that they're going to maintain that power and that they're going to maintain the majority in the United States of America that he feels like the Europeans created, because the founding fathers are coming from a European country. And so he is well aware of his lineage. He's well aware of his ancestry, and it's because of his awareness that he wants to continue on and let that ancestry and that lineage continue on so that he can create a society that is going to be for the betterment, he feels, of his people. Now, again, all of it's a crazy, crazy idea, but that's what he's thinking in his mind. Now, why am I saying all this, you say? Why am I saying all this? Because there's a viral video going out right now of Trick Daddy, who is going on a rant talking about he doesn't want to be identified as an African American. He's not the first black celebrity who has voiced that he does not want to be called an African American. A lot of them say that on an interview when someone, for whatever reason, asks that question, and then they go ahead and say they don't want to be identified as African American. It's not just black celebrities. There are a lot of other black people in the United States who do not want to be identified as an African American. I'm not going to show Trick Daddy's video because it's all on YouTube, but I am just going to just share a little snippet of it just so y'all can hear the end of it, and then we're going to come on back.
Never been to Africa. I never been to Africa. Afro or Africa. Never been there. I'm not from Africa. I'm born and raised in Goo.
The reason why these black people do not want to be identified as African American is because of shame. They're ashamed of the continent of Africa. They have no respect for the continent. They have no pride for the continent. And so because they do not think positively on the continent, they don't want to have a connection to it then. Because if the world looked at the continent of Africa as a positive one, if they felt like and put the continent of Africa on the same playing field as all of these other continents as it should be, then a lot of these black people would not care to be called an African American. They only care because of the negative connotation they feel comes with it. And instead of just being real about it and just say that, you know, they don't want to be from the, you know, they don't want to have a connection to the continent because they feel like that the continent is beneath them, and they don't want to be a part of that continent because they don't feel like the continent is good enough for them to have a lineage there. Instead of them doing that, they pretty much say the same old reasons, the same old tropes every single time, which is they don't want to be called African American because Africans don't like black people, even though that has been refuted time and time and time again. They don't want to be called African American because they've never been to Africa, even though the last time I checked, there are many flights who go back and forth to the continent of Africa every day. So if you wanted to travel to the continent of Africa, nobody is stopping you from doing so. They also do the argument that Africans sold Africans. This is also a narrative that has been refuted many, many times. And if they really think about who started that false narrative that Africans sold Africans, in order for it to be just like it is, you know, for it to create the craziness that it's creating, for you to use as an excuse for not to claim your lineage and claim your ancestry, and to also put the blame on the continent of Africa, so that takes the Europeans out of the equation. And even though that has been refuted, black historians have said, you can find it on YouTube, they have said that is not true, that is not what happened, but they want to listen to people that don't look like us, because of course they feel like that their word is definitely more solidified than their own people telling them. And even if they wanted to continue to believe that false narrative, there have been presidents in countries of Africa who have apologized for their ancestors' participation in the transatlantic slave trade, and it's still not good enough for those black Americans. It's still not good enough for them. So in reality, all the excuses that they're coming up with is not really the real excuse. The real reason why they don't want to be called African American is because they're ashamed of the continent of Africa. They have no respect for it. They have no pride for it. So why are you going to decide you want to be connected to a continent that you have a disdain for? That's the bottom line. And I think it's time to just be real about it and stop with all of these excuses. And then let me tell you what's wrong with this breaking away, or trying to break away from the continent of Africa. When you break the root from the tree is going to fall. It's been 2 weeks since the election, and this is the current nominees that Trump has made for his administration. What's lacking? Black people is lacking. That's a problem. That's a problem. Because that's the one thing that black people always say, is that we don't ever have a seat at the table. That's the same exact thing that's happening in these countries of Africa. They don't have a seat at the table either when it comes to globally. To have a seat at the table, That's where we should be headed. Either to have a seat or to create our own seat. Either way it goes, we need to be moving to the direction of what is called power. Power to get things done. But instead of seeing where the problem is and really what's stopping us from getting to where we're trying to go, some of you are creating an enemy where you don't need to create one. You're creating an enemy with the continent of Africa. For what? What are you gaining from that? They're not the ones that's keeping you from having a seat at the table. If there was a working together the way it should be, then there could be a way for there to be seats created for all of us black people in this world to become powerful people. That should be the goal. But instead you have some black people making these types of videos talking about they don't want to be connected to a continent that, if they're looking very carefully, if they're really looking at what's going on in the continent of Africa and the direction it is going, it's funny how it's only black folks that don't know how powerful the continent of Africa really is. Y'all the only ones that's clueless. The only ones that's running for a continent, from a continent that everybody else is trying to run to. Make that make sense. Y'all the only ones that don't know. Y'all still have this mindset in your head of what you think the continent of Africa is. And the continent of Africa is not like that. The world knows that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to get over there. It's shame. And one of the things that he said in his video was that Africans think that they better than. And it's funny, people come on my channel all the time and tell me that I talk crap about black people, which is an absolute lie. The problem that some of you all have is that you don't like to be looking at yourself in the mirror. That's the problem. That's the problem. Because I feel like as a black community, we can go far if we get out of our own way and actually listen to when people are actually trying to talk to you all and let you know this is where we should be heading. But we can't keep making excuses. We can't keep pointing fingers. We can't be always playing the victim all the time and think that that's going to get us anywhere. It ain't. It ain't. To make a whole video of why you don't want to be called an African American simply because you don't like Africa. That's you don't like Africa. You don't like what you feel like it is. You don't like what you feel like the people are. You still have that mindset that has been infiltrated into your minds for who knows how long. That's the reason why you don't want to be called an African American. Because when you respect the continent, you don't care. I have respect for the continent of Africa. So that's the reason why I don't care to be called African American. I have respect for the continent. I know what's on there. I know I have read about the people that live there. I have read about the culture there. Fascinated about it. That's the reason why I don't care to be called African American. That's why you have people, other black people like me, that don't care to be called African American, because we know y'all the ones still sleep. That's the reality. That's the reality. Looking at our civil rights leaders, it was Malcolm X who said that we were Africans in America. There was never a time that they ever denied where they came from. They reminded black people every chance they got. And just because the generations go and go and go doesn't mean the ancestries change, doesn't mean the lineage changes. It means that you should continue on with those teachings. And that's what I try to do on my channel. Continue with the teachings and let black people know, no, you cannot continue to go down these paths. You can't continue to point fingers at people and then you act like nothing, like you ain't doing nothing. No, I'm not going to sit by idly. I'm not going to do that. That is not what I'm here for. And I'm not going to no longer say it just because you feel uncomfortable, just because you have to actually make some changes. And some, some black people say, they want to do change. Well, let's start with a change. A change that you should make is a change of how you see the continent of Africa and the people in it. That's a change that you can start. How many of you all gonna do that? Probably not many, because you'll have an excuse of why you can't. But then wonder why the black community is literally going around in circles. And the reason why the future cabinet of the Trump administration doesn't have not one black person in it. I want y'all to think about that. All right, you all. I am Michele Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.